Hello. In this video, I will take you through the complete concepts of project risk management. And this video is part of the learning environment of the Project Management Research Institute. You can access the site at pmri.in. The risk management comprises of plan risk management, then identifying the risk, then performing qualitative risk analysis, then performing quantitative risk analysis, then plan risk responses, then implement risk responses, and monitoring and controlling of the risk. So as we already discussed in the first session, a project passes through the phases of initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closing. So under planning, we do plan risk management, identify risk, qualitative risk analysis, quantitative risk analysis, plan risk responses. Then under execution, we perform implement risk responses, and while performing monitoring and control, we do the monitoring part of the risk and as well as the effectiveness of the corrective and preventive actions of risk. So you see an underlying plan, do, check, act playing in this whole concept. So we plan the risk management, then identify risk, qualitative risk analysis, quantitative risk analysis, plan risk responses, implement risk responses, and monitor and control the risk. There are two types of risk. So risk can be positive risk as well as negative risk. So for a very long time, I thought risk is always negative. But then as a revelation, it came to me while going through the project management body of knowledge. I realized that, okay, there is something called positive risk as well. Let us say you are designing a website and you launched it, and then suddenly too much traffic happens, and that is a very positive risk. And if the traffic is too much beyond expectation, sometimes the website can crash. That is a positive risk. Or you started a business and then suddenly too much demand, and then you have to scale it up. Oh, that is an opportunity. So that is a positive risk. And as usual, we have negative risk because things can go wrong in projects. So that is negative risk. So here the key lesson is there are two types of risk: positive risk as well as negative risk. Then another classification of risk there are individual risk items in a project, like risk item 1, risk item 2, and risk item 3. And the cumulative impact of this individual risk will result in overall project risk. So risk, basically two categories: individual risk as well as the overall project risk. Then event-based and non-event-based risk. Event-based examples: the supplier went bankrupt, and that has an impact on the project. So the supplier going bankrupt is the event. And block in shipping network, that can result in slippages to the project if your long lead items are in the ships. And sudden political unrest in the location of your project, that can result in project slippages. A pandemic, that also can affect all of us. So these are all event-based risk. Then there are non-event based risk as well. That is a variability risk. Productivity is below target. So while planning the project, we anticipated better productivity, and then you realize that the actual productivity is lower than the anticipated productivity. That is a variable risk. And productivity above target also, that is also a variability risk. Then comes ambiguity risk. Unable to freeze requirements, and hence there is an ambiguity about it. That is a ambiguity risk. Viability of the business case of the project, people are not very clear about it. There is an ambiguity risk associated with it. So event-based risk, non-event based risk, and under non-event based risk we have variability risk as well as ambiguity risk. Then another emerging trend is, okay, now this unknown risk or unknown unknowns are increasing, because if it's a known unknown, at least, okay, we can take action. When the unknown risks are becoming very frequent, then the only way out for all of us is to enhance the project's resilience. Some of the key ways of improving the project resilience are right level of schedule and cost contingency for emergent risk, flexible project processes, empowered project teams, frequent reviews, and clear inputs from stakeholders. So these are some of the things we can do to improve the resilience of the project against unknown risk, against the unknown risk. Then comes the integrated risk management. So risk can happen at a work package level, and then it will result in the overall project risk. And if that project is part of a program, it will have an overall impact on the program's risk. And if that program or the project is part of a portfolio, this can impact at the portfolio level as well. So risks are connected. So it can go bottom up or top down as well. If the portfolio is getting shuffled, sometimes your project is at risk. And if the project is getting if program is getting cancelled, or if the other components in the program are getting delayed, your project can get into trouble. So managing the bottom up and top down impacts in an integrated manner, that is the essence of integrated risk management. Then here are the contents of a risk management plan. This is not mandatory, this is just an example. So risk strategy, risk methodology, roles and responsibilities of the risk management team, if it is an exclusive team. Otherwise, who will do what with respect to risk, that can be part of the risk management plan. The funding requirements for risk management, the timing, the risk categories, the risk breakdown structure, stakeholder risk appetite, so how much risk they are willing to take, and the definitions of risk probabilities and impact. When we get into qualitative risk analysis, each risk is factored in based on two parameters, that is the probability of the risk and the impact of the risk. So the scales for these things must be defined. On a probability 1 to 5 scale, what is 1 and what is 2 and what is 3 and what is 4 and 5 must be defined. And so is the case with the impact side as well. So these things gets into the risk management plan. Then probability and impact matrix, which we'll discuss as we proceed. The reporting formats for risk can be part of the project risk management plan, and the tracking mechanisms that also can be defined as part of the risk management plan. Here is an example of a risk breakdown structure. The short form is RBS. So risk can be categorized into multiple categories, maybe positive risk, negative risk, or it can be direct risk, indirect risk, or it can be internal risk, external risk. So these categories are defined as part of the or this can be engineering phase wise. It can be requirements related risk, design related risk, construction related risk. These categories are defined within the risk management plan, and then once we identify the risk can be grouped and we can develop the risk breakdown structure, because this is useful for calculating the cumulative impact category wise. So under category 1, if the cumulative probability and impact of the risk are high, then that will end up in an overall risk for the category 1 kind of. And this is an example of a risk rating matrix. So we have the probability scales here. 1 means rare, 2 means unlikely, 3 means possible, 4 is likely, and 5 is almost certain that this risk will occur. And here the impact of the risk, 1 means negligible, 2 is low, 3 is medium, 4 is high, and 5 is extreme. So this is a risk rating matrix. So based on this risk, these risks are plotted, and this green band, we say that, okay, oh, this is okay, this no need to take any action. This yellow band of the risk, we say this must be under observation, and the red band, that is in the danger zone, so this must get special attention. So that is the purpose of a risk rating matrix. So we were discussing about planned risk management. So we discussed about various categories of risk, probabilities, impacts, and the contents of a risk management plan, various categories of risk. We discussed all those things, and now we are moving to the next step in planning, that is identifying the risk. So the key tools and techniques we use for identifying risks are brainstorming, checklists, interviews, root cause analysis, assumption and constraint analysis, SWOT analysis, that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, document analysis, facilitation skills, prompt list. Prompt list, the examples are PESTLE, that is political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental. That means in the previous slide we discussed about the risk breakdown structure. So if you can have a risk breakdown structure with the categories as political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environment, and if you can categorize our risk into these categories, then it is easy to manage the overall political risk, overall economical risk, overall social, technological, legal, and environmental. Then we have other types of prompt lists also. Another list is VUCA. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. These are example prompt lists. Each project or organization can have their own prompt list as well. Then meetings is a tool for identifying risk. Brainstorming, we all know. So brainstorming can generate the risk list. administration of checklist like contract review checklist, requirements review checklist, design review checklist, construction related checklists. So all these things also can reveal many risk. Then interviews with the concerned people can reveal a lot of risk. And the root cause analysis of issues, basically historical data, can reveal a lot of risk. Assumption and constraints analysis will reveal risk, because every assumption is a risk. Because it can be a variable risk, because things need not go as per the assumption. Every constraint is a risk. SWOT analysis, that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we can do a SWOT analysis for the owner organization. We can do a SWOT analysis for the contractors, subcontractors, maybe each engineering disciplines. So for all major stakeholders, if you can do this SWOT analysis, that itself will reveal a lot of risk. And document analysis will reveal a lot of risk. So if there is any requirement for which we cannot write an acceptance criteria, that is a potential risk. So these are some of the key tools and techniques for risk identification. And let us move on to qualitative risk analysis. Qualitative risk analysis, the tools and techniques are interviews, risk data quality assessment, risk probability and impact assessment, and assessment of other risk parameters, facilitation, risk categorization, and probability and impact matrix, and hierarchical charts. We discussed about the risk breakdown structure, that is an example for a hierarchical chart. Probability and impact matrix also we discussed. Risk categorization we discussed. And the probability and impact scales that gets defined in the project plan itself. We discussed about that. So most of the things must be clear for us now. The next step is the key step in qualitative risk analysis is, for every risk we associate a probability factor and an impact factor, and then we multiply this probability with the impact and we get the cumulative value, and based on that value we prioritize this risk. So that is how this qualitative risk analysis is performed. I'll repeat again. After risk identification, we have the risk list, and this risk list is categorized in the form of a risk breakdown structure, and within each category, for every risk item we attach a probability and an impact. So probability scale can be, let us say, 1 to 5, and impact scale also can be 1 to 5. So for a risk item where probability is 4 and impact is 3, then P into I is going to be 12. So likewise we do this P into I for all the items in the risk list, and based on their value we can sort them. Higher the value of P into I, that needs more attention, and others can get lesser attention for the time being, kind of thing. So that is the essence of qualitative risk analysis. So after performing qualitative risk analysis, we will have a prioritized list of risk based on their probability and impact. The next step is quantitative risk analysis. So whatever is prioritized in qualitative risk analysis, out of that some of the variable risk will undergo quantitative risk analysis. Primarily we use simulation techniques, and out of that one of the popular simulation tool is the Monte Carlo analysis. So Monte Carlo analysis is one of the most popular simulation techniques. This can be applied for cost and schedule risk analysis. Then we have sensitivity analysis. An example for that is the tornado diagram. And we have decision tree analysis and influence diagrams as well. So we use the simulation techniques like Monte Carlo analysis and sensitivity analysis, like a tornado analysis and decision tree analysis and influence diagrams as part of quantitative risk analysis. So Monte Carlo analysis, so basically it is performed by complex algorithms. So there are tools, software tools available to do it. So if you want to really understand the internals of Monte Carlo analysis, that is very complex, and as a project manager, one need not understand how a Monte Carlo analysis is performed. We need not understand the concept, but conceptually an understanding of Monte Carlo analysis will help. So here now let us say we have activities. This is our schedule, and we have activity 1, 2, and 3. Now, and we have a set of risk. We have the prioritized risk register, and out of that we are picking up some risk which for which we want to do the Monte Carlo analysis. And these risk items have probabilities and impact. And a risk can be nullified either by reducing their impact or by reducing their probability. So for risk 1 year, if I make the impact 0, the cumulative impact, that is 4 into 0 is 0. The risk is 0. Or if the probability, if I can make 0, and even if the impact is 3, it will become 0. So making things 0 can be maybe very difficult. So maybe we can lower the value. And what is the right value of probabilities and impact? That is the output given by this Monte Carlo analysis. So we submit our list of risk and their correlation to the activities in the schedule, and their probabilities and impact. And based on this, the system will do a simulation, and then towards the end it will exactly pinpoint how much. So Monte Carlo is widely used in credit risk analysis in banks. This is used in rocket launching kind of projects, and the application of this is becoming more and more popular. The key is here the data quality is very important. So if the data quality is good, and if you can define the correlations between the risk and the activities with respect to schedule as well as cost, then as a Monte Carlo simulation can give us valuable recommendations. Then we have the tornado diagram. That is an example for sensitivity analysis. This helps to determine which individual project risks have the most potential impact on project outcomes. Then we have influence diagrams, the graphical aids to decision making. So weather condition will result in weather forecast, and that has an impact on vacation activity. So the weather condition and has an impact on the satisfaction levels of the vacation activity, kind of. So an influence diagram uh, can also help while to identify the impact of uh, variables on the outcome. Then decision trees. Now here it is about effect of certification on income for person making 10 lakh rupees per year. Now here the cost of certification is 40,000. Probability of a better job, if you are certified, it will be 20%. So additional income because of the certification can be 2 lakh. Because the salary is 10 lakh, 20% hike will result in 2 lakh rupees. And the net benefit is 2 lakh minus 40,000, that is 1 lakh 60,000. That is if you take this path. But if you take the other path, if you don't get certified, no certification cost is 0, probability of a better job is 10%, additional income 1 lakh, and the net benefit is 1 lakh. So if you go with certification, the net benefit is 1 lakh 60,000, whereas if you don't take certification, the net benefit is 1 lakh. So this is just an example for decision trees. So we discussed about plan risk management, then identify risk, and qualitative risk analysis, and quantitative risk analysis. And the next step is plan risk responses. The action planning to minimize probability and or impact of individual project risk, thus reducing the overall project risk. There are strategies for threats, strategies for opportunities, contingent response strategies. That means the risk is happening, then what are you going to do? That is the contingent response strategy. An earthquake is happening now, and what you're supposed to do if you are inside the building, that is a contingent response strategy. Then strategies for overall project risk, how to deal with it, alternatives analysis, cost benefit analysis, and multi-criteria decision analysis. All these are tools and techniques used for planned risk responses. Risk response strategies for threats. It can be escalation to the higher levels. It can be avoidance. You avoid that risk. Maybe smoking is bad for your health. Don't smoke. Or stepping out is dangerous. Don't step out. Or executing a project is really risky. Don't do it. Or transfer. You take an insurance and then transfer the risk to the insurance company, or outsource a complex piece of work to an expert organization. That is risk transference. Then mitigate. You get into it and then go with reduction of probability, actions to reducing probability and reducing impacts. That is mitigation. Or accept it. It is a risky project. We are accepting it. But the rewards are very high, so we are going with it. That is acceptance. So the risk response strategies for threats are escalation, avoidance, transference, mitigation, and acceptance. And the risk response strategies for opportunities are escalate, exploit, share, enhance, and accept. Escalate means something very positive is happening. It can be escalated to the next level. Exploit it to the fullest potential. Then share the benefits with others as well. then enhance the opportunities further, take action to enhance it or to maximize it, then accept the opportunity. So these are the strategies for opportunities, and these are the strategies for threats. Then the next step is implement risk responses. So whatever is in orange color here, it's all part of planning. When you plan a project, it's part of risk planning, and it comes under the planning process group. That is, plan risk management, identify risk, qualitative risk analysis, quantitative risk analysis, and plan risk responses all come under the planning process group. Now we are getting into execution. So within execution phase, we will be doing implementation of the risk responses identified during the planning phase. And then it is about monitoring and controlling the risk. That is part of monitoring and controlling phase of the project. So for monitoring, monitor risk, monitoring and controlling the effectiveness. It's primarily we do monitoring of the risk because new risk can occur, existing risk can become obsolete, and a fully managed risk can be removed from the risk focus items. And monitoring and controlling the effectiveness of the risk response actions and the contingency actions. How effective are they? And the tools and techniques used for monitoring and controlling are technical performance analysis of the deliverables of the project, reserve analysis, audits, meetings, risk audits, and how effective the risk management is happening can be revealed through a risk audit. Reserve analysis, we have funds for risk management, how much we utilized, how much is the balance. So all these things helps in monitoring risk. And these days we get excellent project dashboards which can provide you the details of risk in a flashy formats. And some time back we discussed about a risk rating matrix. So all those things, you'll get almost real-time stuff using a dashboard. So with this, we have completed the risk management part. We started with plan risk management. We discussed about the risk management plan and the contents of a risk management plan. Then identifying the risk. The output is the risk register or the risk list or risk register. So on that we perform a qualitative risk analysis that is based on probabilities and impacts. And the high probability impact items will undergo a quantitative risk analysis. There we discussed about Monte Carlo analysis, simulation techniques like Monte Carlo analysis, decision trees, and stuff like that. Then we plan risk responses. What all things we should do to reduce the probabilities or the impacts or both. Then during execution time, we implement those risk responses and continuously monitor the effectiveness of the response action and the contingency action. The response actions are primarily to reduce the probabilities and impact, whereas the contingency actions are, when the risk is happening, what you do, that is about the contingency actions. So we monitor these things continuously, and most probably your risk management will be better than without these things. Thank you very much. And this video lesson is part of the project management learning environment of the Project Management Research Institute. So if you want to watch more videos like this, you can visit pmri.in, and there is a link for video lessons. So click on it. You can watch the other videos similar to this as well. So thank you very much for listening to me for almost 35 minutes, and I hope you got some good value from this video. Thank you very much.